Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a playthrough of Wraith the Giants by Renegade Game Studios. This is a game in their solo hero series where you're playing a young Wraith warrior from a lineage of female warriors up against a group of roaming massive giants. In this game, as the Wraith, we're going to be climbing up, leaping across, and dropping down while dealing damage to the weak spots. The cards on the left down here represent the Giants deck, and this is the current set of weak spots that are exposed on the Giant. So let's take a look at one of the Giant's cards. This card shows us that A1 is a weak spot represented by this card. So now A1 is open for us to damage. A1 is over here on the left of where we are right now. The Wraith at the beginning of the game starts on what's called the ground, and from the ground we can go to any of the positions that connect to it. So coming back to this card, there are a couple of things to observe over here. One is the weak spot location. This can either be a specific location, or like the leftmost card over here, it could be a region. So any of the B weak spots count as a weak spot. The next thing to note on the card is this shield icon, which says 9. This is the wound limit of a card. When you attack this weak spot, you deal damage from the Giant's health pool onto this card. So if you were playing with your wound tokens and you did, let's say, 4 damage to this weak spot, A1, then you would move those tokens onto this card from the Giant's health pool. If you were to reach 9, then this card becomes scarred. Scarred cards are cards that are scarred. Every giant has a scars limit. Over here, for the water giant, it shows a scar limit of 3. When you're fighting the water giant, one of the ways to defeat it is by getting its health to drop to 0, but another way to defeat it is by scarring cards up to the scar limit. So if I were to scar 1, 2, 3 cards, then the giant is dead. And that's one of the strategies you can work towards to defeating a giant faster than maybe burning down its health pool. And finally, we look at the bottom half of the card. The bottom half of the card represents the Giant's attack. After we play our turn, on the Giant's turn, what it's going to do is it's going to attack us with the leftmost card. And an attack essentially means we simply read out and do the effects indicated over here. So for this card, it says, add 5 wound tokens to the Giant's health pool from the supply. This would increase the Giant's health. And then it would also do this effect. If there are any wounds on a card, it will not attack. But if a giant is unable to attack, you advance the rage meter. The rage meter indicates additional effects that will trigger the next time the giant is successfully attacking you. That's the gist of what we're doing on the giant's turn. He's going to try to attack us, then he draws another card, and that card has the potential to trigger additional attacks. We'll go over that when we actually get to processing the Giant's turn. With the Giant's actions explained, let's jump into the game. The general turn order is player does our actions, then we refresh our hand, and then the Giant does their actions. Looking at the player actions, let's look at what we would do on turn 1. The Wraith has a couple of things in her area. The first is her hand. This is your action cards that represent things you can do on your turn. Now, how do you actually play these? When you want to play cards, you need to play exactly 2 cards from your hand, 1 to each of the action rows indicated on the Wraith board. So for example, let's say I want to move, because right now we're currently on the ground. We want to get up somewhere and hit one of the open weak spots in the Giant's row of cards. So I'm going to play the dash and slash, which would let me move or climb upwards. This icon represents climbing upwards. There's a pretty helpful icon guide that tells you what you can do. So this one says climb the giant upwards up to your climb value. So we have to climb no matter what, but up to our climb value. So a minimum of 1. Looking at our weak spots, we have B, B6, E3, E1, and A1. So I'm going to go to A1, and I'm just going to climb once. So I go to A1, and now you might notice a couple of things on this card. There's actions indicated by these icons and these values, which indicate the value of that action. So I'm moving for up to 2. The sword icon would indicate I'm attacking with my sword in the same location, exactly 2. On the left side of the card, you'll notice some circles and an icon. These icons are key to how you play the game. To understand them, let's take a look at one of our other cards, Light Stride. On Light Stride, you'll notice this has a leap action. Leap lets us move across in any direction we want to. And you'll notice that over here, it shows us the icon that's on our first card. In this game, you need to chain your cards over turns in order to make more powerful actions happen. So let's say on this turn, I'm just going to play this card, and for example's sake, I'll play this card, and that's my turn. Then on the next turn, I can then play Light Stride and move for exactly that value, which is the green foot icon. So I could move for 1. Now let's say I played Dive Bomb on some turn, and then this card, and then on a third turn, I played Light Stride. Now I could move for 2 based on the number of foot icons that's on the chain in that row. All right, so let's take everything back and see what we want to do for this turn. Our goal, again, is to damage the weak spots on the water giant. We could go for any of the B slots because that is the leftmost card. However, if we look at the card closely, it says it's going to add 5 wound tokens to the giant's health pool from the supply. So that card is a bit tricky because it's going to increase the health of the giant. But I think for this game, we're going to try to go for scarring it. That's going to be our long-term goal. If it adds 5 health tokens, it's okay. We'll see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and play the move that I played earlier, dash and slash. It lets us move for 2. We can play these actions on the card if there are multiple in any order. And then I'm going to attack A1 for 2 damage. And that's this card. And I'm going to reduce the health of the giant by 2. Because the wounds are coming out of the giant's health pool. Now we need to play a second card. So let's take a look at the remaining cards we have. We have Dive Bomb. It lets us drop down, which we don't need to do right now, and do a firework attack. Then we have a leap action that I showed earlier. We have another sword attack. This one's attacks increase based on the amount of hand icons we have in the row. So maybe for that one, we want to start building towards this card because we can probably do some big damage if we have a good chain of cards. I'm going to play Light Stride here. Now, this is slightly suboptimal because we don't have any foot icons in this row, but we don't need to move right now. So we're just going to play it and we're going to stay where we are on A1 because our goal is to try to scar this card. We don't have any other weak spots that are super close to us. So we're just going to see what happens. So that is our turn. Now we go to the refresh step. And in the refresh step, we can choose to discard cards we want and then refill our hand size to 5. So we have a firework attack. Fireworks do very little damage, but they attack everything around you and the position you're on for that damage. So it's like a nice little spray damage all around you. We have Strong Swing, which we want to keep, and then we have a Swift Stride, which is another leap with a hard value of 2. We're going to keep that. Leaps are really good because it lets you move in any direction. Climbs only go upwards and drops go downwards. And I'm going to draw 2 cards, and that's our refresh step. So we got a bow shot, skilled shot that lets us shoot for the number of eye icons, and then we got a Swift Stride that lets us drop and move based on icons. For drop, there's no explicit value. You can drop as many times as you want as long as you're going vertically downwards. So I think with Swift Stride and Skilled Shot, we want to try to play them in the same row over time because the Swift Stride comes with 2 eyes and Skill Shot also comes with 1 eye, so we can do 3 damage to begin with. But if we get more eyes, we can see how we play it. So next up, what we're going to do is the giant action step. As I mentioned, you take the leftmost card of the giant, read out and carry out the instructions on the giant's card since there are no wound tokens on here. So it says add 5 wound tokens to the giant's health pool from the supply. So the giant's health goes up to 48. Just going to increase that counter. So giant's health is now at 48. The next thing to do is if in B or E, we're in A, so that doesn't qualify. This symbol means we remove the top card of the Wraith deck from the game for each of these symbols. One of the loss conditions is you have no way to refill your hand up to 5, which means you run out of stamina and you lose the game. In this case, we're on A1, so this doesn't happen, and the giant misses attacking us. Whenever the giant is unable to carry out an attack, we increase the rage counter. So that moves up to the start point over here. And this card gets discarded. Next step is to move all the cards to the left and draw another card. So this card has C2 as a weak spot, and we have if in B or C, then remove 2 cards and deal a wound. Now, here's the final part of the giant action step. Whenever you draw the new giant card and it's revealed, you need to look at the icon that has also been revealed. If you have any cards with the same icon in the existing row, those cards now attack. So looking at this is a green sort of crisscross ladder icon. We do not have any of that, so luckily we do not get an additional attack dealt to us from the giant. That's the round. We did 2 damage, and we're going to move on to the next round. That's a whole round of this game. Let's go to round 2. Now in round 2, what do we want to do? We were trying to build up towards doing some sword attacks and some bow attacks. So this is going to be another phase where we're continuing to hit A1. Let's see what the next attack is going to do. The next attack is going to say if in B, then remove 2 cards and deal 2 wounds. We're not going to be in B, so let's continue ignoring that and dealing with A1. So now I'm going to do a couple of things. Something we didn't look at on the first turn, but we will look at now are fearless actions. So let's take a closer look at this. Fearless actions are actions that we can take before or after playing our cards in the action rows as many times as we want. These fearless actions let us drop or do 1 damage with our sword in the current location we're in, or climb upwards for 1 value. You can ignore the 1 on the drop, that's a printing error. You can drop as many times as you want. For doing these actions, we can do them as many times as we want, but each time we do them, the Wraith takes a wound. And notice the Wraith's wound limit is indicated on the card. So right now we've done 2 damage to the Water Giant's A1 weak spot. So if we were to play our strong swing right now, it would do about 2 damage. So that would bring us to 4. And then if we were to do any other attack, there's no other attack we can do. So we're going to set up the bow in the top row. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop, because we always have to drop at least once. So we're going to drop to the ground, and then we're going to climb back up using the climb value of 1. Whenever you have a minimum of 1 value for these move actions, you have to take them. So we're going to move back up to A1. So that's kind of a, drop and come back. So that is set up. And then in the bottom action row, what we're going to do is we're going to play... I'm thinking if I want to play Strong Swing just yet, because it could be a waste of a really good card. But here, we're going to play Strong Swing anyway, and we're going to do 2 more damage to that wound card. We still have some time, so it's okay if we're a little suboptimal with scarring it. And then that's our turn. So now we want to refresh. Let's see if we want to get rid of anything. I'm thinking I'm actually going to get rid of Dive Bomb. It's not giving me any icons that I really want right now, so I'm simply going to discard Dive Bomb over here, and I'm going to pull out 1, 2, 3 cards. 2, 3. All right, now we're talking. We got some pretty solid cards out. The first card we have is a Momentum Blade. It lets us do damage for 3 and move. So this is going to be a pretty good card for the top row because it comes with an eye icon. And then we have another bow shot, skill shot, which is pretty good. And then I believe the last card we got was the Piercing Blade. Piercing Blade lets us do 3 damage. Cool, so that was a pretty good draw. Now let's look at the giant action step. The Water Giant tries to attack us. It misses because we're not in B. This card gets discarded, and it rages because it was not able to hit us. All the cards move to the left, and then you draw a new giant card. Again, remember, when you draw a new giant card, you check the symbol, the icon next to the attack. Since there's no other card in the row with the same icon, we're going to ignore any additional attacks. So getting a little lucky with that. But now we have a variety of different symbols in the row, so let's see if we're able to avoid attacks next time. Okay, that's round 2. The core loop of the game is pretty quick like this, as long as you have a general strategy in mind. Your action space is ultimately moving and attacking. Your attacks are 3 different types, either using your bow to attack adjacent footholds or using your sword to attack the location you're on, or using firework attack to hit multiple places. Looking at the new card that we got on the giant side, it exposes all D places as a weak spot, but D's kind of far away, so we're going to ignore that for now. Our goal, again, is to scar A. So on this turn, we should be able to scar it. So let's take a look at what we're going to hit. So we have several options. I do want to play the Momentum Blade this time to hit the giant on the A1. And what we're going to do is we're going to play Momentum Blade up there. That gives us an eye icon. Again, we're saving our bows for now. And we do 3 damage to the location we're on. So I'm going to put one of the 3 damage tokens. So that gives us 4 plus 3, 7. So we're 2 away from clearing that spot. And then in the bottom, and then we have to do the move action. So what we're going to do is we're going to just move for a value of 1. We're going to move to A2. And the next thing that we want to do now, we have a couple of options. I'm actually going to play Swift Stride to let us drop back down. So I'm going to move back down. This is a leap action. We can move in any direction. I just leap down by 1. And now before we end our turn, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use my Fearless action to attack the spot I'm in, because we're only 2 away from scarring that A1 card. So I'm going to use the sword attack twice and wound myself for 2 damage. And that helps us scar the card. When you scar a card, you flip it over and you move it above the giant's row. For now, I'm just going to leave it. So we've scarred the giant, and now we've played our turn. We took 2 damage doing it, but that was a pretty decent trade-off to get that scar this turn, because it lets us start moving towards and focusing on other stuff. So we have a pretty decent remaining hand now. We just don't have any real moves, so hopefully we're going to draw some moves. We go to the refresh, draw 2 cards. And we get some interesting cards, actually. Let's take a look. So we get a Strong Swing that lets us do melee damage, which is on the spot we're currently on, for the eye icon. So this is actually going to be a pretty powerful card for the top row as well. And then we have Path Climb, which lets us move up, climb upwards for up to 3. So that's some pretty good cards. I think our next goal, let's see, we have C2 coming up after the other Scar card. So I think that's something we want to eventually hit. Let's go to the Giant Action Step. Now, the Giant Action Step says if we're in C or E, we're not. We're still at A1. We're going to ignore that. Rage moves up by 1, and this gets discarded. Move to the left, draw a new Giant card. The new Giant card is a weak spot of A, so that's actually not bad at all. We could probably keep hammering away where we are, but we should try to move up a bit. This has a red icon. None of the cards have a red icon. A card that we scarred has the red icon, but it is not going to trigger because it is scarred. There's a little bit of confusion about this concept in the rulebook. It's not very specific about whether a scarred card that is flipped over will trigger on these additional attacks. The rulebook usually only talks about the leftmost card. In this case, we're going with the ruling of this won't trigger because it's scarred. So we're going to put that aside. All right, round 4, we're going to play 2 cards. So I think now, since it says we got a new A weak spot, I think what we're going to try to do, we have a couple of options. We could move up to where C2 is, although that would require us to climb upwards and then drop 2, because C2 is over here, which means we would have to climb up like this and then drop 2, or we could drop once and then climb up to C2. We could use a Fearless action to do that. If we look at the next attack that's coming up by the Water Giant, it says if in A or E, we're going to take some damage and we're going to suffer the effects of Rage. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to spend 1 wound token and tank this damage to drop once, and then we're going to climb up twice to get to C2. Let's see how we want to climb up. We have a couple of options. We could climb up twice and take 2 more damage on ourselves, which might be okay to do. Or we could simply use Path Climb to get up there and then do our Strong Swing. I think we're going to save the Strong Swing for the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to start using our bow now. For bow attacks, you need to be at least 1 away from the location you're trying to hit. You have to be exactly 1 away from the location you're trying to hit. So we can only hit adjacent footholds. So we're going to take, kind of reckless, but we're going to take 1 more damage to use the fearless action of climbing upwards and go to C1. And from C1, what we're going to do is we're going to play skill shot with the eye icon to do 4 damage. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a 2 eye card there, and then 2 eyes from the skill shot and 1 from the card before it. So we do 4 damage to C2 because we're adjacent to it. So that's 3 plus 1, taking out the tokens and putting it on C2. Cool. Now, what's the next thing we want to do over here? I think for now, what we're going to do is we are going to remain where we are. We do not want to climb just yet. So another option that we have when we play these cards is we can flip a card in order to heal. There's a little potion symbol on the back. So if you flip a card and play it as an action, it counts as an action. It lets you remove 1 wound token. So we're going to do that and leave it at that for now. That's our turn. We're going to refresh, hoping for some moves over here. Perfect. We got, oh, these are some excellent cards. We got 2 Seeking Shots. They let us move for 2 and then attack for eye symbols. So this is going to be pretty powerful on our first action row, which is shaping up to be our bow shot row. So that's the refresh step. Now we're going to look at the giant step. The giant says if an A or E, we're not an A or E, ignore that. Rage moves up, move the cards to the left, draw a new card. This new card has this green symbol, which matches the C2 card, but the C2 card cannot attack as an additional attack because there are wounds on it. So the rage meter moves up again. And now it's at the max, so anytime it keeps increasing, it'll just remain there. And now we go to round 5. Now in round 5, what we're going to do is we're going to play one of our bow attacks again to just finish out the C2 spot, and then we want to try to start moving up. Let's look at what's going to happen on the next action of the giant. It's a scarred card, so it's actually not going to hit us, but we can predict what might hit us. We've got pretty much all the locations that we could be hit at, A, B, C, or D, are on these cards. So there is potential for us to be hit and be affected by all of the rage actions in the same row or below. So that could be a pretty bad turn for us. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to play Seeking Shot and hit C2, and then we're going to move up to C3 and see what we can do there. So we're going to do 5 damage to C2 from where we are. Again, you can play the actions in any order you want, and that lets us scar the Water Giant C2 card. It was at 4 before, and now it's going to be at 8. Remember, one thing to note, the wound limit means that if you do excess damage, that damage is not counted. So this goes to 8, and we scar this card as well. One thing you might have noticed is I've not been updating the counter over here, which should be updated. I missed that in all the fun with the scarring that we were doing. So typically you would update it. So let's say we cleared 33. Okay, so we scar 2 cards. We just need to scar 1 more card and then we win. So now we will move up twice, and we can see that there's another weak spot at the tail end that is intended for any of the C locations. So it doesn't matter where we are as long as we remain in C. So I'm just going to move up to C3, just stay there. And then the next action I'm going to do, so I'm going to play Piercing Blade to do 3 damage to C3 since we are on it right now. And let me grab a token. C3, that does 3 damage, and we drop 3 from the Giant's health pool. So it's down at 30 health. We are done, so we refresh, draw 2 cards, since we had 3, and we refresh up to 5. We got Firestorm, which lets us do a Firework attack. This is actually going to be pretty good for us, you'll see in a second. And then we have Light Stride. Okay, we have some pretty good moves, so next round might actually be the final round. Let's see if we survive this round. A giant action step happens. This card was scarred, so it just moves up and out of the row, and it's unable to attack, so the rage meter would typically increase, but we're at the max, so that's fine. And then we draw a new card. This new card has a blue symbol on it. None of the cards existing in the row had a blue symbol. And so nothing happens here. And now we come to round 6, which is going to be the final round, as you're going to see in a second. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play Strong Swing. Let's end it with a huge swing attack. Actually, no, let's do Skilled Shot, because that gives us an extra eye symbol. And so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 eye symbols, so we're going to do 6 damage with Skill Shot. I'm going to put another 6 tokens on the Water Giant C card because we hit C2 with 6 damage, and it is a C location, so it goes on the C card. So now we're at 9 health on the wound, and we drop 6 more from the giant over here. It goes down to 24. And then finally, we're going to do a Firestorm attack. We could pretty much do Strong Swing as well to end it. Actually, no, we couldn't do Strong Swing because this has no eye icons. We couldn't do Seeking Shot because there are no eye icons either. But we can do Firestorm, or we could have also used our Fearless action at the beginning or after this play. But we're going to do Firestorm, and what Firestorm does is it deals the number of wounds shown to each adjacent weak spot as well as the one you are currently on. So it's kind of like a spray damage, like shooting everywhere around you. And so we're doing exactly 2 damage. We do 2 damage to C3, C2. Technically, we would hit B3, but B3 is not a weak spot, so we ignore that. And we do 2 damage. So let's do 2 damage to C3 first. This card scars. Remember, excess damage on the same weak spot doesn't count. So this card is scarred, and the game ends because we have now scarred 3 cards. All right. So that was a full playthrough of Wraith and the Giants' second boss. It is on the easier side. As you can see, we didn't really take any damage until the end, except self-inflicted damage. And we pretty much nailed it in about, I think this was 40 minutes. I'm looking at the clock. Yeah, about 30 minutes. The core loop is pretty straightforward. As you play with the other Wraiths, you will see an increase in complexity. The adult Wraith comes with an extra row of actions over here that can influence your gameplay. It also comes with a big increase, a big buff to the Giant's health pool, but the scar limit would stay the same. So if you're still targeting scars, this shouldn't make too much of a difference. There are ways to increase the difficulty of the game. There's something known as dangerous footholds that essentially add extra actions that happen, or extra triggers that happen when you move to certain locations on the board. There's also the Elder Wraith. She adds the same extra skills as before. She increases the Giant's health by another 10, so that would add 25. And then she also comes with spells that are in her deck. So that's the full playthrough. Thank you for watching. I'm just getting into making board game content. I hope to do maybe more playthroughs of this in other games in the near future. I hope this was helpful. If you have suggestions on ways to improve, I don't know, the lighting or the way you would have preferred I held the cards, let me know. Again, this is my first time doing this, so I may not have always consistently held the card out. I'll try to zoom into it in post, but hopefully you were able to follow along. And this was informative in letting you know whether this game is for you or not. It's a fairly self-contained boss battler. I like that the decision space is quite simple, in my opinion. It might look a little complex at first. You have to take into account locations of these cards, where you can move, what you can do, but I think the scarring makes the game too easy, almost. I'm sure the other bosses have higher scar limits, which can make them harder to defeat as well. But overall, this was a pretty fun game. I also have Leviathan Wilds in my collection, which is another giant battling game where you're climbing around and dealing attacks. Maybe a bit more tactical, so we'll see how that plays in a future playthrough. But yeah, thank you for watching. And if you're, if this game appeals to you, let me know in the comments if this video helped you buy it or not buy it. Happy to learn either way if this helped at all.